Eyes were on Ohio yesterday, primarily because of the number of Republicans running, including against an incumbent governor, but also because of some key endorsements in Ohio, always a pivotal presidential state, certainly pivotal in this midterm election.
Yeah, well, I think that it shows two things, Jeff. I think it shows, one, that the Trump bump still matters, in the sense that people thought that, his endorsements aren't going to matter anymore. You heard a lot of pundits saying this. But look, the way that JD surged to the top right after that Trump endorsement, I think that goes to show that it's a good bellwether for the rest of the year. I think it also shows, too, though, is that, the ideas ultimately won and were propelled by that Trump endorsement. I mean, JD Vance was one of the first people, and really the only person, to say clearly in this Ohio Senate primary that America should have no involvement in Ukraine, whether it's funding or troops, and that we need to put the needs and the issues of the American people first. And so I think that's a pretty good indicator of how the rest of these elections hopefully will go.
Now, obviously, endorsements matter, but there have been times, and particularly I have commented here on the radio, that a Barack Obama endorsement, even when he was president, did not matter much unless he was on the ballot. Trump is not on the ballot this year, but so far anyway, you could really see it in Ohio, perhaps also in Pennsylvania. That Trump bump, as you call it, may very well break the mold from these past years where people are more independent about things. Is that a good thing for the Republican Party?
I think it's a good thing when the candidates endorsed are the right candidates. Okay. On Trump, right? I mean, he's not on the ballot, but he has been running ever since November 2020, in my opinion, for 2024.
Yes.
So I think it's a good thing when you have candidates that are standing up for ending these endless wars and not sending our troops overseas for issues that have no impact on America as a country. I think it's good when we're backing candidates who are opposed to endless spying on American citizens and the growing of the surveillance state. Really anybody who's going to challenge the D.C. elites and this grip that they want to have on the American people. In that regard, I think it's a good thing.
The problem you have when the primary becomes a bit divisive is trying to get everybody together. And it appeared that J.D. Vance really laid that out there last night in his acceptance speech, really tossing bouquets at his competitors in the primary. A lot of folks will say, well, yeah, still 2/3 of the people voted for somebody else. Do you think that given what's at stake, in particular, will Ohio Republicans, given the divisive nature of the primary, will they rally behind this candidate against a Democrat who gave up a nice, safe House seat to get his party's nomination?
I think they will. In primaries, it's most important to get your name out there. It's most important to reach voters. Because in a primary, you have to vote for somebody, right? You want to vote for someone who inspires you, who aligns with your ideas. In a general, for the most part, people are voting against somebody. So I think it's good that he went out there and is trying to unite the base immediately after his election. And if he wants a chance at, taking that Senate seat, I think he's just got to go all in on hammering Tim Ryan. And there's a lot to hammer Tim Ryan on. I mean, his failed presidential bid in 2020 showed he wasn't popular on a national level. He got 1% of the polls after 2 debates. I mean, he completely gaffed on who even attacked us on 9/11. Talk about a blunder that he can play over and over again. So I think that, he just got to hammer Tim Ryan, and we'll see the voter turnout, what that looks like.
Sean Themea is Chief of Staff for Young Americans for Liberty. YALiberty.org is their website for more information. All right, what's the next battleground? May is a big month. We did have Texas back in March, Ohio yesterday. Where else should we be looking? I know, Pennsylvania's in a couple of weeks, but where else? Yeah,
so some sleeper things that may not make as much on national news, some sleeper states. You've got Idaho, right? And you say, well, Idaho's solid red. I mean, what is there to look at? Well, there is a liberty insurgency going on in Idaho right now. There are over 30 rhinos being primaried right now by hardcore liberty candidates, people who are saying, hey, we're sick of these lockdowns, we're sick of these COVID restrictions, we're sick of what we've seen the last couple of years by the controlling party who doesn't want to advance medical freedom, who doesn't want to advance just returning to the Constitution in their state. I mean, yeah, I'm preaching to the choir here, but these rhinos, they get elected and they want to just sit in the throes of power and not really do anything because that might threaten their reelection. But you know what? We should deserve more of our elected officials to stand up for what we actually want as American people, to be left the hell alone and to have our rights. So take a look over at Idaho. That's on May 17th. You might see a lot of rhinos get primaried out there. And Texas, too. Texas has got runoffs on the 24th. And so we see, a lot of people advancing to this runoff because you got to get more than 50% to avoid in Texas. Mm-hmm. And you've got the same situation there. You've got a lot of establishment candidates going up against the grassroots liberty legislators to be. Also a big attorney general's race out there where you got the last legs of the Bush dynasty, Ken Paxton and George P. Bush running for attorney general. So just a couple of states to look for. And, of course, the Pennsylvania Senate. Before we let you go, give us an introduction to Young Americans for Liberty for those who have not heard of the organization before. Absolutely. Young Americans for Liberty, I'm proud to be a part of it. We are the only group out there that does both reach students on college campuses and wake them up to the ideas of liberty and freedom. And I'm so glad they did, because I came into college as an Obama voting progressive, and I left with a better head on my shoulders, which is more than you can say for the most of college students these days. But we're also the only group that gets out there, does that, and places students on political campaigns to help turn out the vote at the state level for people who are actually going to stand up for your rights in the state capitol. YALiberty.org is the website for Young Americans for Liberty. Mr. Themea, thank you so much for the time. I hope we talk again sooner than later. Hope so too.